Welcome, everybody, to the WikiLeak-a-Day Show. This is December 28th, and I'm your host, George Donnelly. WikiLeaks has released a few more of their excellent leaks, so let's get right to it with leak ID 09PANAMA639. With this reference ID, you can find other people talking about the leak on Twitter, Facebook, through a Google search, whatever you like. This leak is from 2009 from the U.S. Embassy in Panama. The subject, Martinelli wiretap. Martinelli is the president of Panama, a supermarket mogul who seems to want to be a little tin pot dictator. Martinelli wiretap quest shows dark side of new government of Panama. President Martinelli has reached out to the embassy, among other actors, to request help in building infrastructure to conduct wiretaps against ostensible security threats as well as political opponents. Ambassador made it clear to the president that the U.S. government will continue our successful judicialized law enforcement wiretap program with Panama. That's the DEA Matador thing, which we discussed yesterday with reference to Paraguay, where they're helping the government of Paraguay expand it in order to combat the People's Army of Paraguay, a leftist guerrilla organization. But we will not be party to any effort to expand wiretaps to domestic political targets. Well, they'll do it in Paraguay, but not in Panama. Martinelli's seeming fixation with wiretaps and his comments to Ambassador during August 12th meeting demonstrate that he may be willing to set aside the rule of law in order to achieve his political and developmental goals. Well, add him to the list. What was the guy? Fujimori? There's some possibility that maybe even, what's the guy in Colombia who just came out of office? Forgot his name. Weird. Chavez. And now Martinelli, that's par for the course in Latin America, unfortunately. Martinelli has publicly declared wiretapping will be a key law enforcement tool and has supported a draft wiretap bill to the National Assembly. Civil liberties advocates are girding for a fight. The issue could provide the first serious challenge to Martinelli's popularity. Late last month, Martinelli sent the ambassador a cryptic BlackBerry message that said, "I need help with tapping phones." Funny how mundane these kinds of things appear once they show up in a cable like this. Government doesn't have any special powers. They're just a bunch of dummies groping to hold on to what little power they seem to have. Martinelli's administration's aggressive anti-corruption campaign is taking on powerful and corrupt individuals whose economic status is being threatened, so says them. He said some of these individuals may attempt to retaliate by threatening Martinelli's personal safety. In addition, Martinelli believes that his right-of-center political orientation makes him a target of leftist governments in the region who will attempt to infiltrate Panama's trade unions and destabilize his government. Papa Dimitru, which is some kind of advisor, said Martinelli believes he is not getting adequate information from Panama's security services to counter these potential threats, and that he hoped to gain greater insight by establishing a wiretap program. Paranoid much? U.S. government's Operation Matador, that's the DEA thing where they supposedly just do wiretaps on targets of, their Prohibition 2.0, and that seems to be going on around the world. Currently operates in conjunction with Panama's police and security services. They emphasize the requirement that all targets must be related to drug trafficking and related crimes. Then all taps must be approved by a Panamanian Supreme Court judge, etc., etc. Martinelli, in a meeting, Martinelli opened by repeating his request for U.S. government help to expand wiretaps, saying, quote unquote, "We are in the darkness, fighting against crime and corruption. He said it's not fair that DEA collects information but that Panama does not benefit from that information. He made reference to various groups and of individuals whom he believes should be wiretapped and clearly made no distinction between legitimate security targets and political enemies. Well, when you're in the state, political enemies seem to be legitimate targets these days. Just look at how dissent is being suppressed in the case of Bradley Manning, photographers around the country who are getting stepped on by police, and not to mention the upcoming judicial assault on Julian Assange in the United States. Martinelli said government of Peru could expand wiretaps on its own, but would rather have U.S. government help. You know, this sounds exactly like the cable that we looked at yesterday from the government of Paraguay. He said he had already met with the heads of Panama's 4 mobile phone operators and discussed methods for obtaining call data. How reassuring to everyone in Panama that he's already got the mobile phone operators on his side. Martinelli chided the ambassador for being, quote-unquote, too legal in her approach to the issue of wiretaps. He's already working on a registry for prepaid cell phones and to compel mobile operators to submit call data for criminal investigations. Martinelli ran as a pro-U.S. candidate and is now assumes the U.S. owes him a debt as a right-of-center counterbalance to Chavez. Our challenge, says the embassy, is to convince him and others that his government that the 1980s are over in Central America. In our discussions with Panamanians across the board, we are emphasizing the message that the U.S. has no interest in a left-right divide in the hemisphere, but rather in long-term institutional stability. Exactly, right and left, or actually a fake right and left, kind of like the Democrats and the Republicans in the U.S., working together to keep everything on an even keel and not really let anything change. This one is 09PANAMA905 on the same subject from December 2009. Subject, guidance request, DEA wiretap program. Now the embassy is asking for Secretary of State and related agencies in Washington to give them some guidance. They've been grappling with the effort to construct a wiretap program that would target his domestic political opponents, or at least his request to do that. Since our decision, says the embassy in late September, to remove the DEA Matador wiretap program from control of Panama's Council for Public Security and National Defense, we've confronted a series of obstacles. The Matador wiretap program is a valuable law enforcement tool, but we believe the U.S. government must not compromise democratic values in the employment of that tool. Well, that is impossible, because all it takes is one power-hungry doofus to accuse somebody of trafficking in drugs, and now they're fall under the DEA Matador program. And frankly, you know, we see that in the U.S. all the time. They'll stop your car, and if you don't cooperate, if they don't like how you look, if you don't immediately let them search your car and everything, they'll bring out a drug dog, and in some cases, it may even be that they're causing the dog to signal that he found drugs, and then that's all the pretense they need to take apart your entire life. The recent DOS scandal, that's kind of like it's a whole bunch of different agencies in Colombia, but kind of an internal intelligence agency in Colombia, illustrates the catastrophic consequences of politically motivated wiretaps. And such a scenario could easily unfold in Panama if the government of Panama continues its present course of action. Well, I mean, these people at the embassy in Panama seem to be fairly decent. So, you know, it's kind of a contrast with the people at the embassy in Paraguay who jumped all over the chance to expand the wiretap, the DEA wiretap program there. On to our next cable, 08CONAKRY184. Conakry, not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, is in the African state of Guinea, which is on the Atlantic coast up towards the north. Subject, seized drugs, finally incinerated, or were they? You know, this is another one on the topic of Prohibition 2.0, and this is actually kind of funny. On April 11th, 2008, Guinean police seized a shipment of cocaine, exact quantity unknown, and detained 6 suspects believed to be of Latin American origin. All U.S. government requests for additional information regarding the details of the seizure or the suspects have gone unanswered. Mission focused its efforts to ensure the destruction of the drugs, and the result of these efforts proves that corrupt elements of the government are in full control. Exactly 1 month after the seizure, ambassador and somebody else attended the alleged incineration of 390 kilos of cocaine. The incineration was a farce that fooled no one and highlighted the possible complicity of the Guinean Minister of Interior and Security and high-level police officials. It's just Prohibition 2.0. It's never going to work. Nobody is above corruption, especially when they're involved in a corrupt scheme called government and trying to suppress legitimate economic activity. Selling, transporting, producing, consuming drugs, they're all legitimate activities, as long as they're not forced on anybody. Here's a nice title: Excuses, Excuses, Excuses. Director General Bangura, in his usual arrogant and condescending fashion, refused to address the ambassador, claiming that this was not a matter of diplomacy but police business. Sounds reasonable. OCAD Director Mara's enraged response included direct accusations of infringement upon Guinean sovereignty. This heated exchange took place in a very public setting. This is in response to the embassy trying to get a sample of the cocaine that was about to be burnt, probably in order to prove that it wasn't cocaine. After the incineration, they were permitted to take a sample from a pre-designated package of cocaine. The OCAD deputy director, the only individuals allowed to get near the pile of narcotics, handpicked the package. On May 6, investigator received a call from XXX when past weeks had provided them with sensitive information on the drug seizure. XXX stated that government of Guinea planned to burn packages of flour. Such and such is unable to prove the cocaine was in fact substituted with flour. However, Guinea's lack of cooperation and vehement rejection to a request for random sampling raises troubling questions. And as the ambassador's driver very keenly observed, quote, "I know the smell of burning marijuana, and I didn't smell anything," unquote. Well, how does he know that smell? Anybody should be able to use marijuana without facing harassment, kidnapping, attacks, and jail time. On to our next one, 10, Abu Dhabi, 147. Subject, Hamas commander killed in Dubai hotel. On January 29th, approximately 9 a.m. local time Friday, Reuters first reported the January 20th murder in a Dubai hotel of a senior Hamas member, Mahmoud Abdul Rauf Mohammed Hassan, known as Mahmoud al-Mabhou. The initial Dubai government media office statement said al-Mabhou entered the UAE on January 19, 3:15 p.m. from an Arab country. His body was found in the afternoon of January 20th in the Dubai hotel where he was staying. It appears that it might have been Mossad that did this. The suspects were traveling on European passports. The government of Dubai says it's not looking to prosecute an organization, just individuals. As we saw in an earlier cable, some Mossad agents were in a jail in New Zealand for 6 months. It seems like, is this customary? Does Mossad always kind of let its agents hang out to dry? This is one of the cables that Julian Assange recently said he was going to release on Israel. Last cable, 09 Sao Paulo 144 from 2009. Has no subject. On March 14th, 2009, President Obama met with President Lula of Brazil in D.C. at the White House. The meeting was covered extensively by Brazilian media. The presidents have asked their high-level officials to develop a joint strategy to combat the global economic crisis in the upcoming weeks. Lula once more declared that the U.S. is largely responsible for the financial crisis and offered that the U.S. nationalizing banks is part of the solution. Well, he's absolutely right. The U.S. is responsible because it just prints too many dollars. It can constantly eviscerates the value of the U.S. dollar since 1913, when the Federal Reserve, a private organization, as much federal as Federal Express, since they started to exist, the U.S. dollar has lost 96% or more of its value. That's why prices keep going up every year, and they have simply exhausted their racket. It is a disaster, and it is all because of the Federal Reserve. And, we're forced to use the U.S. dollar. Organizations that create, competing currencies, such as Liberty Dollar, one of their people is in jail, and the other is under their inventories have been seized by the FBI, and they are under threat of criminal investigations. Obama acknowledged biofuels could have been a source of tension between the two countries, of course, because you see, Brazil wants to provide a lot of them, but at the same time, we see biofuels, which come from organic sources, are forcing out food crops, and all because of government subsidies. More hunger. WikiLeaks, this is from Haaretz.com, WikiLeaks to publish Israel cables on Second Lebanon War, Dubai assassination, thousands of documents, including some top secret. Should be good. The worsening journalistic disgrace at Wired, from Glenn Greenwald. Absolutely disgusting. Wired has the ability to release all of the chat logs that between this lame-o guy and Bradley Manning, who is wasting away in military prison. Yet they don't. They've only released about a quarter of them. The New Republic, WikiLeaks is a game changer, could be the death of big business and big government, because now the thing that has caused these big organizations, that it's easier to do things in-house rather than outsource them, could now become a liability, because if you have 100,000 employees in-house, that's 100,000 potential leakers. Yeah, that's great. From dailybail.com, some good questions about Attorney General Eric Holder, who wants to take Julian Assange and WikiLeaks to task, but why hasn't he asked to see the evidence which WikiLeaks claims to have that executives at one of our largest banks may have committed serious crimes? He doesn't seem to care about enforcing the law and seems to be on a personal vendetta against Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. And that's the end of our show for today. Thanks for watching. I'm your host, George Donnelly. You can get the recorded show at armyourmind.com. We'll be back again tomorrow at the same time, 12:05 p.m. Eastern Time. Have a great day, and thanks for watching.